So, welcome everybody back to the Playful Mind podcast. I am joined with me today, somebody incredibly special. I'm so pumped, so excited to have on board. She's a business owner, a TRTP practitioner, doula, holds a bachelor's in social science, a podcaster, and I invite everybody to go and check out her podcast. It's called Parenting by Design rather than by Default. She's also an author, and to me, somebody who truly embodies what it means to serve a community. I took this from your website, so I'm going to read it out. I loved it. So we're going to dive into it. You're a mother of four, a grandmother, frunchy as they come, and here to help you navigate the wild ride of parenting with a healthy dose of honesty, a touch of wit, and yes, the occasional swear word. So welcome to the podcast, everyone. Phillipa Scott.
Oh, thank you. Don't tell my children I'm funny. They don't know that, right?
I don't feel like children ever acknowledge how witty and humorous a parent is, ever.
When they're little, they do. And you're the best thing in the world, right? And you've got
Yeah.
until they're about 9 when they're girls. And once, I don't know, like boys are similar, but you might get away with a little bit longer with boys. But girls, as soon as they turn 9, that's it. You are not funny anymore. You and you get all the eye rolling, and
Yeah.
I watch it in my two
Oh,
and a half
my 4-year-old's doing it now.
I watch it in my 2.5-year-old grandbaby, and I watch her side eye her aunties, and it is so funny. Like she goes hard, right? Like it is so funny
Yeah,
to watch.
yeah.
She's all sass. It's great.
I suppose a really good place to start is how we originally connected. So we both attended Aaron's Entrepreneurs Summit,
Yeah.
Mr. Empire himself,
Yes.
and then we connected post that with the WhatsApp group, which was really cool. And that, I guess, forced us all to do a bit of MAIA, massive and immediate action. So that for me is what really brought about the urgency to get a podcast going and really start to accelerate serving our community. And it's lovely to have guests like yourself on the pod to really affirm that message of, serving our community. Did you want to dive into, I guess, a little bit on your background, what you actually do? What's TRTP? Maybe
Yeah.
we can dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I think to explain that really well, I probably have to give you a little bit of my story. So, you know, I entered the world of supporting mothers back when, well, over 22 years ago, after my first birth went pear-shaped, and I realized that I didn't have access to the kind of informational support that I should have. I didn't understand what I was stepping into, and the internet was a very different thing back then. There was no social media. It was, our access was super different, and so I went on this journey of discovery around the maternity system and so on. And I decided that I was 26 when I had my first baby, or almost 26. And with the wisdom of my youth, I was going to save everybody, and so I put my superhero cape on, and I went to work supporting women and I got a birth center built in Townsville, and I did a lot of work with women who'd experienced birth trauma and C-sections and, all sorts of different pieces. And what I discovered during that time was a lot about myself, a lot about the government, a lot about bureaucracy. It was a huge learning journey for me. But I really leaned into, up until then, I'd actually been like at high school, if you'd have said, who do you hang out with most? It would have been the fellas, right? Because it was easier. I was always the new girl.
Yeah.
My parents moved around a lot because of work. And so, relationships with women wasn't something I was very strong at. It was way easier to hang out with the fellas. And so I when I moved to Townsville with a 3-month-old, knowing no one, all of a sudden it became very clear to me that I needed women in my life. I needed other mothers. And so I really leaned into that because I was dealing with birth trauma. I was a first-time mum, doing it remotely, out of town, not knowing anyone, and I really suffered for it. But I also was very proactive. I'm not the kind of person to sit and go, all right, well, that is what it is. I sat in mothers' rooms waiting for somebody to come in so I could talk to somebody to see if maybe we could form a mothers group or something else. I didn't know what else to do. So I just did what I could. And I found my tribe eventually. I went through various iterations of that and I found my tribe and I discovered how to create that. And that that learning informs my book, Finding Your Tribe, because I needed that. I actually needed to be surrounded by others. And what I discovered was if you don't have someone to call at 2:00 in the morning because you got to take your husband to the emergency department or you got to go into labor with another baby, if you haven't got anyone to call, you don't have a tribe. And women today are even more impacted by that because they might have 20,000 followers on Instagram or 500, but if they've got nobody to call at 2:00 in the morning, when shit hits the fan, they've got nothing.
You don't have a tribe. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this journey it was twofold for me. It was very much about supporting women and fathers in their journey to becoming parents or adding more children. That was kind of the space I initially entered, and I was doing a lot of teaching mothercraft skills once I had a couple of babies under my belt, and I had 4 babies in 6.5 years. So I was kind of pumping them out.
Your hands were full.
There was a bit going on. So I was teaching what I knew and I was sharing that, and we did baby wearing classes when baby wearing wasn't a thing.
What's baby wearing?
Oh, so you know how like you've got the baby Bjorn carriers and those sorts of things.
Oh, yes.
Back in
yes.
the day, they were not actually baby friendly. They were, from a chiropractic perspective, they were really bad. So structured carriers weren't great for babies. And they were kind of like wearing a massive bra, right? And they'd just be really like,
It sounds so comfortable.
right, but like they'd be really painful on your shoulders. And I'd already gone from a B cup to a D cup in my first pregnancy, so there was no way I needed extra strain on my shoulders. So, I started learning and creating baby wearing wraps and slings and things like that. And so then teaching that, it changed my world. I wouldn't have had 4 kids without a baby wearing device. Like, it just wouldn't have happened.
You're a true pioneer. I love it.
It wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing back then, right? I remember turning up to the home birth conference with my now 19-year-old wearing her like that. And I was creating them for Friends of the Birth Centre Townsville. And so I was making them and we were selling them at a really good price because all we wanted to do was share the message. And if we made a little bit of money to support the work we were doing, then great. And I got orders like up the wazoo. We spent months making these things. I got a $5,000 order from the Mildura Mothers network. Like, they wanted to help their mums to baby wear, etc. Like, it was crazy because nobody was doing it back then. Anyway, I was doing all of this stuff and I burnt out. We moved away from Townsville. I went into the corporate world. I burnt out again, and I'd spent about 5 years or 4.5 years moving my family around. We did 8 moves in 5 years with 4 kids, twice overseas, and I was doing all of these things to get the corporate position that I thought I wanted, and I got there. I was running a $16 million a year sales team. That was my budget. Like, I was running all the extensions of that, the marketing and so on, and so I'd made it, and I did it quicker than anybody else. And then they discovered I had a brain aneurysm, and I couldn't really do stress the same way anymore. So instead of working 7 days a week, I took a demotion and I was working 6 days a week. And then I changed industries and I was still working 6 days a week. And by now I've got teens and tweens, right? And what I didn't know then, and my eldest was 16 before I discovered this, was that all of my children are neurodivergent. Now, when you've got girls who are neurodivergent, it's very easy to overlook, especially, I mean, nowadays they know, right? Like there's a lot more awareness around that. But back then there wasn't. So we got to a point where my third born was diagnosed first. And I went, oh, right. Okay, it's not because I'm fucking them up. It's actually because there's
an actual clinical reason behind all of this. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
thing.
And you know what? I think that's so relatable to a lot of us even today, because we're now starting to see a lot of effects through like trauma ambition. And I'm almost certain that I suffer from this because I always seem to have this need to want to keep doing more out of ambition, but like what's fueling the ambition? So now I'm becoming more consciously aware of like what is fueling that ambition. Is this a trauma response? How far back does it go? And then start doing the work. But to your point, like none of this stuff, neurodivergency, all this sort of stuff, these are terms that have not really been brought to light until recently.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny that you say that, Jared, because I did a talk last month for a local group. They're actually an international organisation, but they're called Fuck Up Nights. And right? And I hope there aren't children listening to this, but anyway, you did preface it that there would be swear words. But the night is essentially about people telling the story of their fuck ups. And for me, that fuck up was the fact that I was operating from a story that I'd adopted as a child, and I didn't know that I'd adopted that story. But my mum's love language is acts of service, and so is mine. So is my husband's, thankfully, so that makes it easy. But what I didn't understand about that was that I had internalized that my value came from doing. And so I was doing a lot, I was doing lots of kids. I was doing lots of volunteer positions, and I still do that. But I was doing lots of work stuff. I was everybody's go-to person, But it wasn't because I was giving from my saucer. It was because I was trying to fill my cup by doing, because I thought that the two were related. And what I discovered with my third burnout was that actually, because I ended up with adrenal fatigue, when she got that diagnosis, my whole body went, you haven't listened. You haven't heard us the whole way through, and now we're not giving you any choice. And my whole adrenals just shut down. And they said, well, we're not giving you any more stress response capacity. We're just going to... We're just stopping. And they did, yeah. And so I was in complete shutdown mode, and I'd never experienced anything like that. And for a woman who operates in high capacity, for a woman who is known for and appreciated for, or what I thought I was appreciated for, was my ability to get shit done, for me to be able to not even stay awake past 7 at night, for me to be taking 6 wrong turns getting to work, I literally was just off the freeway. There wasn't even 6 turns to take. Like, it was, I was leaving ham on the bench. I was doing stupid stuff that I don't do, right? Because it's not who I am, but everything shut down. And so that I thought in my naivety, I was like, all right, well, maybe I need to go to a 5-day-a-week job, right? Maybe I can't do all of this stuff and parent 4 neurodivergent children and run my husband's business. And, I was studying at uni and doing a Cert 4 and doing all of those things at the same time, as well as working a 50-hour week, which was high pressure, anyway. So when my body shut down and demanded that I listen, I went looking for a different job because I thought that was the answer. And I was so blessed to discover this woman called Judith Richards. So she was looking for someone to come and work for her and to help onboard practitioners to learn her modality around trauma. And I was like, I don't normally do this, but something about her ad, like every bit of it was calling for me. She wanted somebody who'd had who'd had a sales background, but also had a people-based background. And I'm like, I've had the most eclectic background. I've sold timeshare photocopiers. I've been a childbirth assistant. I've done counseling work, like all this weird stuff popped in together. And so I was like, she's actually speaking to me. And I did a deep dive into her YouTube channel and I just got stuck. I was there for hours. And at the end of that, I sent her an email. I said, I've applied for your job, but I don't care if you don't give it to me. Can you find me someone to do this with? Because I don't have trauma, I said.
Yeah.
Because,
Us do.
But Aussies particularly are really good at mitigating their trauma. So I was like, I don't have trauma, but I've got all the symptoms. Right.
That's like my undiagnosed ADHD. I know I have it. It's just undiagnosed.
That's right. So she found me someone and I did this work. I had to schedule in 2 weeks of sick leave because and not that it took that long, but I needed to also rest my body. I had been running on overdrive, and so I was like, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this and take time in between. Now, a lot of the clients I work with don't do that, but I needed to rest. I needed a couple of weeks. And so I took that time, did the work, and I went back to my original position. I didn't start working for Judith for another 4 or 5 months. She was ahead of the game in terms of her looking for someone.
What was her response from the email when you said, I don't have trauma? Like, how did that even go into you being able to get a start with her?
Judith is very pragmatic. We did meet after that. She got me up to her, to where she was in beautiful Mullaney, and we had a conversation, and she was like, "You're the person," and I'd already done TRTP by then. She's like, "Go do it, experience it, have fun with it, and then we're gonna meet," because I wasn't really in a place before that to really be my best self anyway. So I did the process, and within, it's a 15-day, so it's 3 2-hour sessions over 15 days. So, say Monday, right? And I got to the end of that course and I was like, I don't ever remember feeling this good. I don't ever remember being this good, right? And it just, I had a complete nervous system reset. And I'd been supporting my body nutritionally with oils and stuff because my GP was a functional GP, and so he was suggesting, diet and supplements, etc., rather than,
trying
medication.
To mask the symptoms, trying to resolve them at the core.
Yeah, that's right. And so I did all of these things, and I was like, I'm back, baby, but I'm back better than I've ever been, right? And so I was super excited to work with her, because then I was like, well, what? This is incredible. I don't understand everything I've ever done. And I'd done years of personal development, of different modalities, of trying different things, and nothing had landed like this. Nothing had given me that reset that I needed within my nervous system. And so
I think there's a really good point in that. If a lot of people throughout life are just doing things for the sake of doing it. And I get that we also need to provide and care and all that sort of stuff. But I do feel like when you're truly finding joy in something, or you're feeling like you're finding that sense of alignment, that's really an indication for us to be like, I should probably pursue that a little bit more. But I guess there's that fear of, but if I pursue this, then am I going to drop those other responsibilities that I've got, and being a provider and a carer. But I think there's something to be said about listening to your own body. And I'm so glad that you did that. Glad that you did that.
Yeah. And I didn't get a choice, right? At that juncture, my body was saying, all right, we've had enough. You're not hearing. I had a brain aneurysm and I still didn't listen, right?
That's not just that.
So I clearly was a slow learner. I'm not typically a slow learner. I'm typically actually a very clever woman, but but my story was still wrapped up in this idea that my value came from doing, and that's not true. You know, what I discovered was that actually my value comes from being.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to be doing all the time. I still do a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like, my ambition has not changed. I want to leave the world a better place. I want to contribute to the world in a massive way. And yes, have I done that? Absolutely. The birth center has been running for 18 years. And actually at Empire Mastery, the first woman to give birth in the birth center came up to me. This is 18 years ago. She came up, she's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. I had to call my auntie last night and make sure that you were her because, you know, like, and she's like,
there's a celebrity amongst us.
I wouldn't go that far. But she was like, you know, my daughter's now given birth twice in the birth center. We are so grateful for everything that you did. And I was like, wow, that, like, and I know, like, part of my mission is not to do something that necessarily I need to continue to do, but how do I create things in the world that have an ongoing impact well beyond me, you know? That's part of the reason I called my business Fantastic Futures, because it's actually not just about what we do now, it's about what that impacts moving forward, you know?
Forward facing, yeah.
So anyway, I started working for Judith in the February, and I had been there for 3 days when I said to her, Jude, I have to learn how to do this. And she said, and I'm going to swear again, so block your ears if you don't like it. But she said, 'cause she's got a worse potty mouth than I do. But she says to me, fuck an oath you do. And if you don't take this to women with birth trauma, I'm going to be super pissed. Right. So I did. I learned, became part of the teaching team. I helped her run the business for a couple of years before I went out into private practice. And but that was just the start, right? TRTP, because I had a nervous system that was reset, and then because I started to understand my nervous system and understand other people's nervous system and how much of their trauma came from their experience of being parented, I was like, all right, I've got to figure out how to not fuck up my kids, like, properly.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's one thing to do that and think that consciously and read all the stuff around gentle parenting and so on. But if you're doing that from a nervous system that's not calm, if you're doing that, it's like, you know, there's been these things going around on TikTok and whatever, like, if you bump into someone who's got a coffee cup, you know, and the coffee spills, they didn't spill your coffee. They bumped you, and what was inside your cup was coffee, and that's what spilled. So if what was inside there was water, it wouldn't be such a big deal on your white shirt, right? But you just spilt your coffee because that's what was inside. So when shit hits the fan, which it will because we're parents and that's hard, right?
Yep.
So when we spill, we want to spill from an unconscious script that is of our choosing and our design. And what a lot of people don't understand is that their script, what was scripted for them, and their internal belief system was laid down from 3rd trimester in utero through to about 7 years old. So most people are running around with a 2 to 5 year old running the show, right?
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah.
And what kept them
like, I'm so guilty of even saying, you know, my 4-year-old, she's the boss. So guilty of saying that. She's the boss.
Yes, but your 4-year-old self is actually your boss. What people don't realize is that most of their, so 2% of what we do each day, or what happens in our body each day, is conscious. We're very conscious of our conscious. We're thinking about what's for dinner, how many dishwashing tablets have I got, what's, you know, all of this stuff. We're conscious of that. But you've never consciously had to tell your gallbladder to release bile because you just had a dinner and you need it to digest.
That's right.
Right? You don't do that. You
They're
don't have
all
to think about your heart
responses,
beating. Yeah. So most of what happens is unconscious. Now, the unconscious has a belief system. Now, that belief system, it sets patterns up in our life. It runs the show. If you believe that it's not, that if you want to lose weight, but your unconscious doesn't agree that it's safe, then you won't ever lose weight, because your unconscious will continually sabotage that. If it's not safe to love or be loved, and you're trying to create a positive, intimate relationship, then you'll self-sabotage. It's not like you wake up in the morning and you go, oh, 3 o'clock's a good time to send a relationship sabotaging text message, right? That's not how it works. But you do it anyway because something in you goes, well, I'll push them away before they can push me away, right? And it's, if it's success, if it's not safe to be seen or heard, well, then how are you going to share your message or that sort of thing, right? So, but those beliefs were created from 3rd trimester through to about 7 or 8 years old, and they kept us safe. If you were in an abusive household when you were 5, your options are not fight back or run. You don't have those choices. So your choices might be to hide, or to be less, or to be a people pleaser, or to organize everybody, or control the environment. All of those things might be your choices to keep you safe. Now, what keeps you safe when you're 5 isn't going to allow you to thrive when you're 35 or 45 or 55. So what I'm really passionate about doing is helping people understand what is the core belief behind it, and then helping them change it. But in order to help them change it, I need them to see themselves as the biggest asset in their parenting. And mothers don't do this very well. Dads are a little bit better at it because culturally it's allowed. But mothers are not meant to. They are meant to be the last one to eat, the last one to shower, the last one to be, to be served. And that's how we've culturally placed it. So I was the woman on the plane who, I'd sit there, and the thing came in my head. The plane, the attendant would say, if the oxygen masks fall, put it on yourself first and then help others. And I'm like, no fucking way. That's not the kind of mother I am.
Yeah,
right?
I'm helping someone else first. Yeah.
Right? I'm like, no way, I'm putting my kids first. And then when I burnt out that 3rd time, I had a 9-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 15 and a 16-year-old. And I was like, well, what if I only get through 2 of them before I pass out? What if I actually can't be here to do the other 2? What if I'm not here to parent them? Then what happens? And I realized then that actually it doesn't serve them for me to give from my cup. We talk about having a full cup and giving from a full cup, but I don't think that's right. I think we need to be giving from a saucer.
Yeah, you've got a great analogy about this. Yeah. Please dive into this, because I loved when you first explained this to me, but I know there's going to be so much value to everyone. So please dive into this concept, because I think a lot of people would not have heard this before.
No. So if you're going to give from your cup, you are always going to be giving from a deficit. You're always going to be running yourself lower. And if you aren't filling your cup consistently, you're giving from a deficit every time. It might only be little, but it's a deficit. But we're actually meant to give from the overflow of that, from our saucer. Right? If you think about old-fashioned teacups and saucers, that saucer is where you pour from, that you give from there, because that's your overflow. What is in your cup is vital for your vitality and your life and your essence. It's not optional. And yet many of us are giving from a completely empty cup. And I know from talking to hundreds and hundreds of women over the last 22 years, thousands even, they don't even know how to fill their cup, let alone give from their saucer. And so we can't do that. Aaron talked during Empire Mastery about seeing ourselves as our best asset in our business, but we are also our best asset as a parent and as a
And
parent.
in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. It's funny, I never connected that analogy until we spoke about it the other day. Um, but I was always conscious of, if I can't be the one to look after myself, how am I going to expect anybody else to do the same? And I was talking about this concept. It's not really a concept. It's literally what happens is that, our children watch what we don't listen to what we say. They watch what we do. Now, if your child sees their parent and they're not looking after themselves, then what hope do we have for the children to think, oh, I need to look after myself? And
100%.
that's sort of the overflow of the saucer, when you're at your best and your ability, it amplifies, it spills over in that saucer and gives to everybody else. I thought it was such a brilliant analogy. I really, really liked it.
I'm really good at analogies. It's kind of my thing. But
Yeah,
but the interesting thing
new
is,
book coming your way.
let me I guess give you a bit of an example of that, right? So I
Yes,
I
please.
was having my I was having a branding shoot done, and the makeup artist was talking to me, and she's like, "Okay, so you're a parenting coach. I'm trying to get my 3-year-old to toilet train, and we're really struggling. Like, she knows what to do, but she won't do it." And I was like, "Okay." I said to her, "So how do you respond to her when she has an accident?" And she said, "Well, I'm really good. Like, I don't make it a big deal. We just go, oh, well, try again next time, and we clean it up and it's fine." I said to her, "Okay, who's the perfectionist in your house?" And she said, "Me." And I said, "Okay, so when you make a mistake, how do you treat yourself?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm pretty hard on myself." I'm like, "Okay. So what, your daughter isn't thinking about how you're treating her. Your daughter sees how you treat yourself."
Yeah.
And then she goes, "Oh, it's not okay to make a mistake, because it's not okay. I'm watching mum live. It's not okay to look after myself. It's not okay to make a mistake. If it's not okay for mum, well, that's what I'm actually following."
Yeah.
Right? So for mum to actually be able to impact a better outcome, which is our kids being able to be okay with making mistakes and, learn from our mistakes, we actually need to model that through how we treat ourselves.
Yes.
And that's hugely important. And this work doesn't happen in a moment. People, I'm going to give you another analogy. All right, you ready? This one's a good one, right? So you asked me before about TRTP, and it's like, it resets the nervous system. It changes all those unconscious core beliefs. It does it all in 3 sessions, right? So it is fast, it's effective, and people
Amazing.
love it because they're like, 3 sessions? I can commit to 3 sessions. I don't want to be sitting
Yeah.
in an office with a counselor or psychologist for 3 years. I want this needs to happen now, but I can also commit to 3 2-hour sessions. Like, that's easy. And that's what appealed to me initially. I'm like, let's get this done. So
Yeah, let's get shit done. Yeah, love it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the way
Faster
I
than invasive action.
100%, yeah, let's just get this done. So the way I look at it, though, because I offer TRTP therapy and I offer coaching, but they're 2 different things. TRTP is like cleaning the kitchen, right? So if you walk into the kitchen and you want to make a cake, but in the sink is loads of dishes. The dishwashers are full but not turned on. There's crap all over the bench, bacon and onion, a bit of mince from last night's lasagna, and all that sort of stuff. And it's just, there's crap everywhere. And your favorite bowl and whisk are already in the sink. And if you come into the kitchen to make a cake, is that going to be a fun or positive experience? Probably
Absolutely
not.
not.
Right. It's going to be harder. It's going
Speaking
to
from
take
my own
longer.
personal experience, absolutely not.
No, it feels harder. It takes longer. It's not as joyful, right? But if you come into the kitchen and it's clean, making the cake is easy, and it doesn't have last night's leftover mince bits in it, right? So I talk about TRTP like cleaning the kitchen. And we give you tools so that from that point on, you can wipe down your benches and do the maintenance work. But it's easy, and everything you do after that, whether that's a business course or a parenting course, or whether it's personal development of some kind, or just learning from life, it's easy. That's baking your cake. Personal development is baking your cake. TRTP and that therapy is like cleaning the kitchen.
Cleaning the kitchen. Yeah, I
Yep.
love that. I love that.
Because then it's all easier. You're not dragging last night's dinner into the mix.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. So I guess, that's so awesome that you've shared all that. I'm just thinking, what are probably some of those mechanisms for healing? Like those really simple ones that everyone who's listening to this would be able to go, oh, I can just implement that now.
Yeah, cool. All right, so one of my favorite go-tos is what I call dropped energy. I actually created a a little course called the 5 Minute Miracle, because this literally can change everything within less than 5 minutes. But it's effectively when we, okay, go back. My ADHD brain just kicked in. So
Can relate.
when there is what exists in the world is a law of physics called the law of entrainment. It's a universal law. It's happening whether you know about it or not. And it says that, let's say you put a whole bunch of grandfather clocks in a room together, pendulums swinging at different times. They're if you go away and come back a few hours later, all the pendulums will be swinging in unison, right?
They'll sync. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the law of harmony. It says that things want to sync and vibe together, but that happens between interpersonal energies as well, right? We're just creatures of energy, and everyone who's ever parented a 2-year-old knows that you can stand at the kitchen sink and you can be happily just going about your business and be fine, and then they come in and they have a total meltdown about the fact that you gave them the blue cup with the apple juice in it, and that's exactly what they asked for. But now they want the red cup, and they want it with milk in it, right? And they're losing it because this isn't what I want, right? And you were fine, but now because they're up here and escalated, you start to escalate.
Your
right?
energy's matching. Yeah.
You start to match their energy. So one of the most powerful things I teach parents is how to drop their energy into a safe, strong space because this is the essence of co-regulation and resonance, right? If we are to have any chance of co-regulating successfully, we need to know how to instantly regulate ourselves and to be strong, because the strongest energy in the room is going to win. Right? Everyone will eventually entrain to that. And you then become a safe place for your children, your partner, and others, right? So I teach them how to do that. And it's really simple. And are we actually doing this on video, or is this just going to audio?
It's going to be both.
Amazing. So if you aren't watching this during audio, then come back and watch the video part of this if you can. But I'll try and explain it so that it's both, right? And I'm going to stand up because I can, and it's
okay, cool.
Right? If can you stand with your, like, do you have a sit stand desk or something? Like, can you do that? Because you can do it with me. Right?
I reckon I can. I think I can give it a shot.
All right, go. So. So imagine, yeah, perfect. All right, so imagine you're a soldier, right? And you stand at attention. Ready? Attention. Very stiff, feet together, shoulders back, chest out, chin up, hands firmly beside your hips, right? It's very stiff. Now, where do you feel the energy in your body when you stand like that?
It's like internalized, like it's very rigid. The energy is sort of like in here.
Yeah, okay. So like for me, I feel it mostly across my back. And you can hear that I'm talking really fast, and it's like a pinball machine in my brain, right? Like blah, blah, blah. So when you stand like this, if you take your hand now, and don't push yourself over, actually, I don't want you to fall, but take your hand and give yourself a little push and see how easy it is for you to push yourself over. Yeah, right, easy. You're a pushover, okay? I promise that's my only dad joke. Right, now.
I'm taking that.
Totally. My dad's the king of dad jokes. If you take your feet now and put them just over shoulder width apart, right? Now I want you to unlock your knees. It's not a bending, it's an unlocking, right? So what happens when you do that is you'll feel your thighs engage, your core, your pelvic floor, maybe your glutes, they'll all engage. It's not a clenching, it's just an engagement. Now I want you to take a big deep breath and just let all the energy drop down into those muscles. And just let it drop, right? Take another deep breath. And let it go. Just let it all drop down into those big, strong muscles. Now you can hear it in my voice. It's lower, it's slower, right? Now if you take your hand and put it back in the middle of your chest and try and give yourself a push now. Like you don't move, right? You just...
Nothing.
Yeah, you can't go anywhere. So this is your strong, safe space. So if you need to regulate very quickly for yourself or your children, this is how you do it. I teach this to birth workers, to midwives, to dads who are about to go into the birth space. Like this is, I teach this to nurses and you know, all sorts of different spaces, because your ability to co-regulate others who are in a time of stress is super powerful.
Yeah,
And so
and it goes back, I guess, to that point of being sort of like that center of gravity. So if you're in that regulated space, naturally the energy around you will gravitate towards that and help regulate everyone else.
yeah, so you've just regulated yourself, and you've given your family the opportunity to co-regulate to something that is safe and strong, not
Yeah.
able to be pushed around and buffeted by the rest of the world, right?
Mm.
You don't want your 2-year-old running the show for you emotionally. It's not a safe place to
No.
be.
No. No.
And when they get to teenagers, man, like that's a whole different level of shit show. So we you know, then what we do from this point too is we can change how we see what we're dealing with, right? So one of the tools that we use is a process called I choose to know, right? Now, you can say affirmations if you want to, but I don't think they rate compared to this. I could stand in front of the mirror and I could say, I'm smart. And back at me would come my unconscious and my consciousness both going, actually, you went to the grocery store yesterday, forgot 17 things on your list, and your list was in your handbag, and that is not what smart people do. So I don't think so, right? Whereas, right? Whereas if I actually drop my energy and I say, I choose to know, I am smart. I get to
That
choose.
reframing. Yeah.
I'm taking the power of my choice and I'm saying, all right, despite whatever evidence there might be to the contrary, I choose to know that I am smart. Or I choose to know that I'm safe. Or I choose to know whatever it is that you need to think, feel, or experience in that moment to be okay.
Yeah.
I teach people how to figure out what their body is actually telling them about what their unconscious believes. Like we have all sorts of incredible fun tools that people are usually like, oh my god, that's so crazy, like I didn't know I could do that, you know. um but we do, like, there's tools for life included in this, right? Yes, we do the therapy, which I'm going to run you through, and it's easy and you don't even have to talk about your stuff. I don't want you to tell me your story. I don't need to know. We're going to just fix it. But then I'm going to give you these tools to continue to be well and to continue to have the power in your life. Because if we can change those unconscious beliefs, we change what spills when you get knocked. Because you'll get knocked. As a parent, you will 100% get knocked. You know, when my kids come home from a big day at school and they've been masking all day and they come home and they just let it, all of a sudden I could either, and it can be big some days, let me tell you, with 4 daughters, right? Like I can get some stuff thrown at me. And in the past I used to go, oh, well, this is they're attacking me, right? But what I ultimately discovered is they're actually not attacking me. And so I had to do this. I created an I choose to know, which was, I choose to know this isn't actually about me. This is about them and whatever happened for them today. And that shifted me from a place of feeling attacked into a, how do I love and parent them through this moment? You know,
Yeah.
I have a special one
You
for
know,
my mum.
I can actually relate to that from like a leadership perspective. You've
Mm,
really got to remove yourself from the emotional sort of aspect of things going on. Yes, let them feel seen, let them feel heard. But you have to, I find in a professional setting, you've got to focus on the facts, you know, because you can't really lead from that place without understanding the facts. And then from the facts, you can sort of dive into that a little bit more and connect, you know, what's really going on for this person. And then at that point, it's about jumping on their side and saying, hey, let's tackle this together, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's huge value in this for leaders, because if leaders are taking things personally as well, then they operate from a place of defensiveness rather than from a place of leadership. Um,
Yeah.
but it's not always about, like, it can be different. Like when I deal with my mum, right? Uh, I, one of mine is, I choose to know that's her shit. That's not my shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's actually not. Sometimes it's actually not about me at all. It's not. There's. I don't have to own any of that stuff. But if I take it on like it's my stuff, then I'm not doing anybody any service. But I can just let that go. Then I can go, okay, that's not my stuff. That's her stuff. So she can deal with that, right?
Yeah,
Not
and
mine.
giving yourself permission to do that too, you know?
Yeah, and choosing to
So
know that it's true.
we can't save the entire world. Like you initially set out to do, we can't save the entire world.
No, no. Although I'm still going to give it a red hot shot, but it's
Yeah.
but like these are just simple little tools that sometimes if we reframe those pieces, it can make a big difference. The other piece that I think is really useful is to understand the kinds of thinking patterns that keep us locked or sabotaging, right? So the father of positive psychology created the 3 Ps, decades ago, and more recently a fourth P has been added in. But it's this idea that we're either stuck in the thinking pattern of, we take it personally, right? So it's about me. Perspective, where we tell a story about what the other person is thinking, right? And I'll give you an example of that. I came home a few months ago and my husband was cranky at the children. And I'm like, what's the matter? What's going on? He's like, well, they're up there now, vacuuming and doing stuff. And they should have had that done this morning. I'm like, why should they have had that done this morning? And he said, well, when did you ask them? I said, 10 minutes ago. And he was like, oh, okay. I'm like, because that fell off my plate, right? So I was like, I
Yeah,
didn't know.
yeah,
And we
yeah.
had people coming. So I'm like, quick, guys, give me a hand. I need your help. And they jumped to do it. But he was cranky because he'd told himself a story about what was happening for them, right? And what I might have done. He was putting me on a pedestal thinking that I'd been better. But anyway, I wasn't. Um, but then when he had the correct story and had clarity, well, then he didn't have to be cranky at them and thinking about what that story was. The next one is about pervasiveness. So instead of us saying, you know what, I have my health, I have great kids and great relationships with my friends and my partner, and I have, a good work life. I just need to deal with, maybe this one piece, maybe my relationship with one child, or my relationship with one parent, or my relationship with one, or like there might be one piece that needs support. But instead of siloing that one piece, we kind of just go, well, we're like, well, everything's not okay.
Yeah.
So that problem becomes pervasive. And the last P is permanency, where we think it's all like we don't have any idea of the timeline, and we're sort of we assume that it's going to be a problem for a very long time, instead of actually asking ourselves, how long is this going to be a problem for? Well, like at the moment we have one toilet and a half a bathroom because we're renovating, and I've got 8 people living in this house.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we're all having to do it a little bit tough right now, right? But I can go, well, how long is that going to be a problem? Max 2 weeks. We can live with that for 2 weeks. It's fine. It's like,
Yeah.
we'll call it glamping, Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's not a problem forever. So the easiest way to remember this, and I'm going to swear again, kids, but the easiest way to remember this is we either think I'm fucked, you're fucked, everything's fucked, or it's fucked forever, right? Now, if we can go, what am I thinking right now? What pattern am I in? We can then start asking ourselves some real questions about whether that's even true, or whether we need to ask some questions for clarity, or like what's actually happening. And if we can do that, we can then often reframe everything for ourselves. There's a blog on
Just
my
having
website that
that
talks to that.
moment to hold that little bit of space for yourself to just process instead of jumping to the conclusion or creating that narrative within your own mind, just have that little bit of space to consider what else could have been going on, or what are the other possibilities happening in this scenario.
Yeah, exactly. But if we understand what space we're sitting in, and most of us will sit in a particular space most of the time, you know. My husband tends to sit in the space of it, you know, it's he tells himself a story, right? So and his other one that he sits in a lot is he actually takes it personally, like it's his problem, he's done something. And so, you know, once we recognize our patterns too, we can then start to apply a bit of logic and care and all the other things, and maybe a reminder somewhere in our sphere of what we need to do. Maybe it's an I choose to know statement, maybe it's dropping our energy, maybe, you know, any one of those things. But yeah, the blog on my website goes into it a bit more of, you know, what can you do if you're in this? What can you do if you're in that? Because these are important things for us to understand. And most of us don't even think about our thoughts being in this way, you know.
I think what doesn't help as well is we're so distracted by all these social media and what's going on in the world, and like when do we sit and have time to be bored? Like when can we just ruminate on our, well, not ruminate, but when can we just, you know, think about our own thoughts? Like, I think one of the biggest things for me is like meditation. Being able to just sit there in absolute silence and just listen to whatever's coming in and letting it go. But we're so distracted these days.
Yeah.
So distracted.
Yeah. And my ADHD won't let me do that. But what I do, and I discovered a long time ago once I finally figured out how. So I used to resent, you know, when my fourth baby came along, I was like, I feel like I'm always at the clothesline, like always at the clothesline, right? And people often said to me, what's the biggest difference between 3 kids and 4? And I'd be like, well, somebody's always hungry and the washing seemed to have quadrupled, right? Or, like overnight, like it just feels bigger. But I remember standing at the clothesline in Townsville, and so it's hot, right? Clothesline hanging is not as fun. But I was standing there and I was resentful of this workload. And I remember standing there going, okay, I can't be like this forever. I can't actually live from here. It's not good. And I remember thinking, okay, why do I have this much washing? Because I begged and cajoled and convinced my husband we had to have another baby. Right? I wanted another baby. I wanted, you know, each of my children have been joyfully planned, and I wanted them. This is what comes with that. Yes. And so I can either choose to be resentful of the washing, the cooking, and all the things, and the mountains of dishes, or I can lean in and go, this is part of what happens because I got to have what it is I actually wanted. And
yeah, acting from a place of gratitude. Yeah, I'm all for this, because there's often times I hear around me, oh, I've got to go to work today. And I'm like, well, look at it this way. Let's be grateful that you have a job. I mean, there's so many people out there that can't work, let alone get a job. They physically cannot work, and I'm sure they would love to be able to go to a 9 to 5 or whatever the case may be. I really like that. Yeah, we do need to get more comfortable with reframing our lives and instilling more gratitude within that. Definitely.
100%. So once I had learned to appreciate the washing, and the fact that the washing was a sidebar, or it was proof of purchase, you know, it was proof of my
Here's your receipts.
it was proof of the gifts that I'd been given in 4 beautiful children, right? And there are a lot of people who would happily take on the act of washing if it meant that they got to have the children that they've lost, or if they got, you know, that like so once I saw that as a byproduct, I'll randomly get cleaners or other people come and they're like, can I do the washing for you? And I'm like, nope, that's mine.
They're my
I
receipts. I
they're
need
my
the
receipts.
tax.
Right, but it's actually a place where, because my hands are busy, I'm actually able to lean into free thought. So I
Yeah,
have.
it's your meditation.
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I can't just sit there doing nothing. Like, that does not work for me at all.
yeah,
I can do it while I'm driving. I can do it while I'm putting clothes on the line or washing dishes, stacking the dishwasher. And sometimes I'll fill that with audiobooks and courses and other things. But at
yeah.
least once a day, it's a moment for me to just have all of those thoughts and let it all come and go, and be doing something brainless, you know?
And I think that's an important point for everyone listening to this as well. Like meditation can manifest in so many different forms, but be conscious of those times where your brain is, you know, having those thoughts, and allow them to come and go, and
Yeah.
just do what you do on autopilot. Like it's,
Yeah.
yeah. A lot of people think that, oh yeah, meditation, you just got to sit there, be silent, you know, and close your eyes and do some breathing. But it manifests in so many different things. Like I think about, even when I'm in the shed and like working on a particular project, I'm in such a joyful state because I really want to do it. But I'm also in a meditative state because I'm allowing all these other thoughts to come and go. And I know what I'm doing with my hands, I know what I'm working on, but I allow everything else to just come and go. And it's funny because I've got a lot of friends as well who are very hands on, love working on cars and all sorts of things. And you know, I've said to them, you know, that is your meditation. That is what gives you your peace of mind, you know,
Yes.
doing those sort of things. And I also think it's really important um, for partners to recognize what are those things in each other and encourage that.
Yeah.
Because I know there's times where I'll just be in a right strop and my partner will be like, can you just fuck off and go to the shed? Like, well, can you just go fishing? You know, like, and
Yeah.
like that's like, yep, I fully acknowledge that. I need to go away.
Totally. For my husband, it's mowing the lawn. We have 7 acres, so he gets on his ride on and he just goes. And don't try and take that away from him, because that's his meditation time, right? Like, that's his joyful, where he just thinks and does the things, you know. But
Yes.
but I think there's real value in what you said earlier too, in this idea that often we don't actually allow our thoughts to come to an actual conclusion. Sometimes because life is so fast moving all the time, and so we don't actually have we often don't think a thought all the way to the end. And very often the best gold actually comes when we can give space to having a thought that goes all the way to the end, and we continue to explore it. Because, you know, when I was a kid, we used to lay on the grass and look at the clouds and try and make shapes, you know, like decide what they were. We had lots of boredom, and boredom is good.
Yes.
But we need to create moments within our life where it's okay for us to think a thought and see it through to the end,
Yeah.
because sometimes that's where we need to get to in order to have the epiphany, or in order to have the resolution, or the idea, and so on.
Yeah,
There's
I
huge
think a
value.
useful tool for myself as well has been journaling. So if I have, because my brain's like yours, it goes at a million miles per hour. I just jot things down, but I always go back to revisit it because it was in my mind for a reason. But I needed to. It's like my hard drive was full at the time, and it's like you cannot save this file. You need to upload it to the cloud or do something because we can't process this right now, Gerard. Like, come on, man. It's like, okay. So I'll jot it down and then I'll revisit it. And that's
Yeah.
been so valuable for me because, especially like having entrepreneurial or a business mind, we get so many ideas come through our head and we don't really know what that's going to birth until we've really fully explored it. So I think, you know, if you're listening to this, definitely use journaling as an option if you've got such a busy mind.
100%. I love, like, I've actually discovered for my brain recently the best way because I was a lists girl, right? But I'd have a big sheet of paper and I'd just list. And that's fine, except that my list would just end up 3 pages long now, and there would be 7 things on the first page that, and eventually maybe I'd move them or whatever. Now I've actually discovered if I just get a plain notebook and I write the day and the date at the top of it, and I do that maybe for a week or so ahead, and sometimes it's only a day or two ahead, but just depending on, where I'm up to. But I write down the things that I need to do that day. And I work through it. And anything that comes in after that, right? So anything that, because I get loads of ideas. I'm an ideas girl, right? I get all these, and I go, okay, I need to do that, but that's not a today job, because I'm not going to fit that in today. So instead of putting them on today's list, it goes on tomorrow's list or next Thursday's list or the week after's list, right? Like, it can go somewhere else. It doesn't go on, not everything goes on today's list. So then when I'm looking at my list, I'm like, okay, I've only got to do these 6 things. Now, some of them will take longer than others, but when I've...
prioritize.
Yeah. But you can't do that from a big ass list, because you get overwhelmed, especially with an ADHD brain, right? So I just break that down, and it has changed my productivity levels exponentially. Like, it is so cool. And sometimes things will be, won't get done because in the priorities of the day, they're not the top, and so they'll get moved to the next day or later in the week if they were just it would be nice to get this done sooner rather than later. But ultimately it'll all get done eventually. But that changed how productive I was on the day. One of the things, I'm an avid reader. Well, I actually listen to audiobooks because I don't have time to sit and read.
I like audiobooks too.
So one of my favorite coaches is Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach, and he and Ben Harding did a series of books together, one of which was called The Gap and the Gain, which was brilliant because it talked about the idea that, as a human, you will always have, if you're trying to reach the horizon, you're never going to get there, right? Because it keeps moving as you go further around the Earth sphere. But we will, as humans, always move the guideposts. We will always change the goals, and we'll get there and then we'll shift them. We won't achieve happiness sitting, waiting to achieve our goals, but we can achieve happiness by looking back from where we've come. How far have I come, right?
Yes.
The second book I loved of theirs was Who Not How. So leaning into the idea that we don't have to do everything. Sometimes we actually give the gift of somebody else fulfilling their happiness if we lean into who can do that for me rather than how do I do that. And so the beautiful thing about, what Aaron talks about too is this partnership. Like, how do we help each other and not be silos in the world? And I think for mums particularly, and dads, if we can actually lean into, we don't have to be silos. We can be a tribe. We can do things together, and it doesn't make us less. It actually makes us all more. Then we can change that paradigm. And then the last one being 10x is easier than 2x. Because it asks you to shift yourself considerably rather than just a little bit. But there's one of the things that they talk about, particularly in The Gap and the Gain, is this idea of, at the end of the day, yes, write down your gratitude things, write down 3 things or whatever that you're grateful for, but also write down your 3 wins from the day, right? So what are my 3 wins from today? Get to end of the day going, I did win at something. And what will my 3 wins be tomorrow? So when you wake up with momentum. Your unconscious already can be planning for tomorrow. And I say to mums all the time, I'm like, your 3 wins from today might have been a hot beverage, a shower, and peeing by yourself. Like,
they don't have to be huge milestones. Yeah, for sure.
No, but what did you win at? And then what do I want to win at tomorrow? And it's only 3 things. That's it. 3 things. Anything after that is cream, right? But what would allow me to feel like I've won tomorrow? And so if we lean into that, we can change the way we sleep as well.
I think you've probably answered kind of my last question to you, or my last thought, I guess, to you. I think I could talk to you for hours.
We can do this again. We'll do another one.
We're definitely doing it again because I really do want to touch on. There's a lot of the audience that'll have teens,
Yes.
so we'll definitely touch on that again. But we've got a bit of a tradition that we've started, and I ask every guest to sort of reflect on their whole entire life experience, every bit of knowledge they've gained, and I ask them to impart one thing, one little bit of wisdom that they can pass on to our entire community. And it could be as simple as maybe a quote or just something you've recently learnt, anything like that.
Okay.
Have you got something in mind that you want to share?
Yeah, I've got you. Um, you're not broken. Everything that's happening, every way that you're responding, every piece that you're showing up with is actually just your nervous system trying to keep you safe. And it's working perfectly. It's actually doing what it's designed to do. It's just running from old scripts. It's like you're an iPhone 17 running Nokia 3110 software, right? And that's not going to serve you ultimately moving forward, but it doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you can't. It just means you need an upgrade in your software. And we can do that, but you're not broken. And we are able to do this thing to help you get to where you want to go. But a lot of us think we're broken. A lot of us believe we're failing, and we're not. Our system is not sabotaging us because it doesn't like us and it wants us to fail. It is trying to keep us safe. It just has an old version of safety. Yeah.
Yeah. Pippa, absolutely amazing. Where can everybody go to check you out, what you're doing? You do have something really cool on the horizon, an app. I don't know if you want to share that yet. We can maybe do
Oh my gosh.
that. But please tell us, how can we get more of Pippa?
Okay, so I do have the podcast is called The Family Architect: Parenting by Design Rather Than by Default. If you've got teens, then or if you're perimenopausal, go to Unapologetic Edge, the perfect storm woman, because that speaks to you and what's going on there for you. So there's 2 podcasts. You can do them on YouTube or on all the platforms, whatever, it doesn't matter. But if you want to jump onto the website, it's fantasticfuture.com.au. Again, if you're perimenopausal, it's unapologeticedge.com. I do have something really cool that's just landed, and I'll share it really quickly because it's been a really long podcast, which is cool. But and maybe they'll listen to it on 1.5. That's what I do because I'm ADHD. But I've discovered recently that most of us aren't doing courses. I'm the queen of buying a course and never actually doing it, or I'll do the first module and never get it further than that, because we're all time poor, or at least we don't see as much value in the initial learning, because it takes a long time to get the learning to the end game, right? So the learning is valuable, but people want an answer now for what they're dealing with now. So I put all of my podcasts, all of my blogs, my courses, my book, my nearly 23 years of parenting and grandparenting and neurodivergency training and trauma training and all the things into an AI. So can you go to ChatGPT? Of course you can, but it hallucinates. We know that, right? And it's generic. It's not necessarily going to meet you where you're at with what you need to know. And it's not necessarily tested. If you've got 1 or 2 kids, that's fine. It might work for you. But if you've got 4 or 5, most of that information is designed for not having lots of kids. It's also not designed for when your nervous system is dysregulated, and it assumes, most parenting courses and most advice assumes you're calm when you're reading it. And most of the time you're not. So the way this is designed to work is that you sign up. I've got a special offer for you, and Jared will put that in the show notes and whatever. But you get 14 days free, generally speaking, unless you use this code. But you get you use WhatsApp, right? So it's like the first message that comes to you says, treat this like Auntie Pip in your pocket, right? It's imagine you've got a mothering mentor sitting there waiting to go to, deliver you into your phone an answer that's not only going to be regulation focused. So how do we regulate you first, mum? Right? How do we regulate you? But then it's going to be neurodivergent friendly, trauma informed, nervous system aware, multiple children friendly, relationship focused, right? Because if you don't have relationship with your child, you have nothing. So how do we make sure that the relationship is stronger at the end of this interaction rather than weaker? And so you get all of that without having to put in a prompt. You just go, I'm about to lose my shit with my 2-year-old because they're doing this. What do I do? So you just talk to it like you were talking to me if I was your parenting coach. And you'll get delivered a beautiful response that will help you not only be okay for you, but be okay for your children. And it's
amazing.
It's $9 a month, so I've made it as accessible as I can.
It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing, and it is giving so much value, like I said, to the community. And that's why at the beginning of this, I prefaced that you are somebody who truly embodies what it means to serve a community. So thank you so much for your time, first and foremost, and thank you for just being who you are, because the world is a so much better place to have you in it, and I'm so grateful that we were able to connect personally, and now the fact that we're able to extend that to the rest of everybody else, that's just magical to me. So thank you so much, Pip.
It's a pleasure.
You take care of yourself, God bless, and we will definitely be in touch soon. I'll link everything in the description. There's so much content for you guys that we haven't even touched on, so please like everything that Pip's doing, and we'll catch you soon, yeah?
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Jared. Appreciate it.
Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Bye.